Are men lonely? And I don't mean for a woman. We know there's a crisis going on with the state of how, women are and how they want to be strong and independent, and they're not really marriage minded. They might want to get married, but are they wives? There's that whole situation. But also, where are their friends? One of the things I've noticed is that when they get, put through the ringer in family court or anything like that happens, so many times they think they're the only one. And it's because they have no real friends to share with because it's so many men. Anyway, welcome to Far From Eden. We're going to talk about a difficult subject, and that's loneliness in men. And I found an article from 2023 last year in Men's Health about male loneliness. And I like to share mainstream stuff a lot because then we I like to get an inside view of what sort of the normies are getting fed as far as information. The ones who don't know, to look in the dark corners of YouTube or Rumble. So this is what we're dealing with. Before we get started on this article, though, we have a special guest. For those of you who've been watching for a while, someone decided to join me, and now I can't show you because she's too low and she's not getting on the camera. It's Lola. Anyway, please like. The rule is whenever Lola is a distraction, then I'm gonna show you guys. I'm determined. So here we have the Lolanator. Hello, Lola. There she is. She's quite busy, licking the chair. It's important business. So I don't know why she decided to join us today, but that was fun. I know that Garrett, for one, if I hadn't shown you Lola, Garrett would be like, come on now. So you blame him for that. There's a woman again, escaping accountability. Okay. It starts off with, this man's experience shows how susceptible men are to severe loneliness. And I have found that in the emails I have gotten from you guys, in the comments. It's devastating. The amount of loneliness these men are in. I mean, they have nobody. And it's like, where did their friends go? They had friends in school, right? And the other thing I'll say, excuse me, is that married men seem to have almost like approved friendships. Like, okay, these are the husbands of the women that I'm friends with, therefore they're now your friends. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever notice, like, when you start dating a woman, she kind of separates you from your friends? Like, it's like, that would be a warning sign. Could you imagine if men did that every single time they started dating somebody and they just decided, okay, well, I don't like any of your friends and you're not going to be around them anymore and blah, blah, blah. I am sure you would love to. But that's a no-no. But women do it all the time. They separate the men from their friends that they had when they were single, and they sort of replace them with approved friends. And a lot of times these friends are like football buddies. They can come over on Sundays and watch football. It's almost like supervised, right? Or golfing buddies. It's a little like, okay, these are approved. And I'm not saying that's every marriage, but it shouldn't be any marriage. Oh, one common thread through this whole article, which kept making me think that that I'd made a mistake printing it out. But I understand why they repeat it so much. Loneliness feels a lot like depression, though the two are not the same, says writer Josh Clancy. So this is by Josh Clancy. It says it was updated on the 10th of October, 2023. and it was in Men's Health magazine. So, it's out there for the normies to read. Okay. A few years ago, 4 of my male friends and I spontaneously organized a trip to the Peak District. None of us is exactly Bear Grylls, but we packed some hiking boots, emptied Sainsbury's, and committed to 48 hours in the relative wilderness of Derbyshire. I'm trying so hard to pronounce the English places properly. I know we have a lot of you guys are from the UK, and my father is, so I will be so ashamed if I pronounce this stuff wrong. I can't quite remember how we came up with idea, but we obviously felt that spending a weekend in a lonely rural cottage would be an important thing to do. Something fascinating happened on that trip, though. The schedule was pretty mundane. We spent most of the time drinking and gently humiliating each other, as you might expect. There was a failed attempt to cook a beef Wellington and an extremely ill-judged hike that ended with an unfortunate trespassing incident, but that wasn't the extent of things. Sounds kind of fun. It sounds like adventure. It sounds like sort of what you would do when you're 13. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Though we had all been good friends since university, we had never been away together. It was liberating to leave London and deposit ourselves on a misty northern moor. As 5 men sitting around a fireplace in the middle of nowhere, we somehow felt freer. Embarrassing concerns and old grudges were released from ancient resting places. I love that. We were able to examine our souls. That's so important. It's so important for y'all to be there for each other. That's my favorite thing about this channel, is when you all talk in the comments. And I know we need to get a locals going so that there's like a place to, commune. I'm pretty sure you do that on locals. Gosh, it's a lot. I'm doing it though. I'm getting it. I stayed up all night with one mate discussing how we felt a little trapped by our lives, which had become prematurely constrained. I wanted to be a writer and foreign correspondent, but found myself chained to an editorial desk job. He had spent several years working in finance, but yearned to do something more fulfilling. It was one of those rare conversations I've had that permanently impressed itself upon my consciousness. I'll never forget its power, nor the extraordinary impact that being away with a group of close male friends can have, creating an atmosphere that was at once fairly savage and deeply comfortable. Women need to understand that when men get together, it isn't like when women get together. You guys tease each other, sometimes mercilessly, and women need to stop deciding how you guys should socialize or what your friendship should look like. They really need to get out of it and give you the space to have that. It is so important. Back 100 years ago, probably, there were, a gentleman's club didn't mean there was going to be, scantily clad ladies there. It meant there's going to be, some little bit of drinking of brandy and maybe cigars and talking. They used to, get together and talk. Television really messed a lot of that up because they used to get together at the public, and discuss ideas. And then in the 1950s, television, and everybody was at home with the television on. So that did not help. And once again, it's like, oh boy, the Amish had it right. They saw things. I mean, I know I sound a little nuts, but really, what's nuts? What the Amish are doing or what society is right now? I feel like that's, they when in doubt, do as the Amish do. As I'm here on YouTube with cameras and a camera and lights and stuff and a computer. Oh gosh. This trip, I realized a few months later, was the antithesis of loneliness. By then, though, I'd moved to New York, having obtained the coveted correspondent role. My life swung violently from one pole to the other. London, surrounded very old friends, surrounded, I'm guessing you mean by very old friends, to Manhattan, surrounded by strangers. I was single and almost friendless. For the first time in my life, I was truly lonely. Okay, another problem. Like society pulls us apart. It doesn't just pull the family apart, it pulls individuals apart. It pulls men apart from their friendships. So the idea is career, 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 right? Follow the career. That's important. But friendships are important. I moved so much growing up, and it was like, oh, nope, leave these friends. Don't worry, you'll make new ones. Don't worry, you'll make new ones. And each time, it's harder and harder. And I've realized now, as I'm in my mid 40s, I'm like, wow, you know, looking back, the priority in my family was, my father's career, not staying where family is, fostering friendships. That was never like, obviously, it wasn't the priority because we would leave all that to go to the next career opportunity. And I think that that's probably not the right answer. So he moved from London to Manhattan, and now he's got nobody. He's got his job, though. So lonely that I began to crave the perfunctory smile of the waitress at my local diner. Each morning, I would look forward to the familiar nod of a corner shop owner who sold me the New York Times. I also developed some strange habits, long nocturnal walks through the city and strange corn meanderings on my laptop. Let me say, I have you guys tell me if you're comfortable, but I think sometimes this whole thing with the, men looking at corn, I'm not sure if it's the bedroom fun type stuff they're actually craving. I think they're lonely. And that's the only sort of attention, female attention. I think that it sort of is like, well, I guess I'll look at this. I don't think that it's this crazy bedroom fun type addiction. I think it's a loneliness crisis. Even with men in marriages. I mean, sometimes especially with men who are married. They're absolutely alone in their marriage. I've heard from some of you. It's heartbreaking. At times, I took masochistic pleasure in feeling so isolated, letting the city wash over my sense of self, feeling like an extra in an Edward Hopper painting. But mostly, it was just miserable. My expectations of New York, the people I'd meet, the conversations I'd have were enormous. So much of the city's televisual myth revolves around friendships. Propaganda. Girls, Seinfeld, bedroom fun in the city, and of course, friends. But where was my devoted group of hilarious, dysfunctional pals to help me out of second gear? Right? The propaganda. The propaganda is so strong. It's called programming on television for a reason. It's absolutely on purpose. Everything you see, read, consume is all an advertisement. And the advertisements in mainstream are not advertising necessarily just the product that they're advertising. They're advertising what they want society to look like. And I know a lot of you know what I'm saying. Okay. Human needs. Loneliness is often compared to hunger. It's a lack of emotional sustenance, the physical pleasure of being in the company of someone who cares about you. But urban isolation is its own type of starvation, and New York is perhaps the loneliest place to be lonely. Isn't that interesting? What does Manhattan have like? I don't know how many, 13 million people, a lot of people, like over 10 million people in Manhattan alone. And he's saying it's the loneliest place, that you're literally starving for, not literally, that you're starving for human companionship. Everything is fake. Everything is a mirage that they tell you. And it's to pull you away from talking about issues. It's to pull you away from friends so you don't talk and you don't know what the real problems are and you never take action. I'd walk through Soho or the East Village on a Saturday morning, marveling at how busy and engaged everyone seemed to be. How did they all seem to know each other? Why didn't they want to know me? They're faking it. Loneliness feels a lot like depression, though the two are not the same. My apartment in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, overlooks the city's shimmering panorama. It is one of the world's most thrilling views, unless you are feeling lonely. Then the lights mock you, each twinkle a symbol of people connecting with one another, drinking, laughing, kissing, everyone except me. But it's a mirage. Even the ones who are getting together, they're not really connecting. They've all got a different priority. That's what brought them there to New York, and that's what keeps them there in New York. Now, maybe they have some from childhood, but I'm going to err on the side of no. Again, loneliness also feels a lot like depression, though the two are not the same. One study by the University of California, San Francisco, found that the majority of those who report feeling lonely are not clinically depressed, though there are overlaps. As for me, I had no chemical or pathological reason to be unhappy during those 6 months in New York. I was like a computer that had been unplugged from the internet. I just needed to reconnect. I needed friends. And it's okay. It is okay to need friends. There is nothing wrong with you for wanting to have male companionship. You absolutely should. That's where you get together and you talk and you sort of, you guys grow from interacting with one another. Lola is reminding us to like the video if you like the video. This sensation diminished over time. I found a girlfriend and I made enough friends to get by. I'm happy again, but the experience got me interested in the subject of loneliness. So I began to read and write about it. I read Olivia Lang's The Lonely City and Sebastian Junger's Tribe. I delved into Karl Ove Knausgaard's My Struggle, though which a wide seam of loneliness and disconnection runs. I quickly realized I wasn't alone. Right? You're not alone in your loneliness. That's a good title for this whole thing. Millions of others were as lonely as I had been, many of them in the largest, most thrilling cities in the world, struggling with lives of outward success and inner depression. Outward success? What does that mean? We have all been told success means money, success means status, success means some career. Why have we been told that? Because that gets us focusing on working. And what happens when we work? We pay taxes. They want us focused on that. And they want the family destroyed. They want male friendships destroyed because male friendships talk about things. And a lot of you have similar concerns about society. And if you got together and talked about it, so you might decide to do something. You might figure out who the real enemy is. And they don't want that. What is Christopher McCandless said, a career is a 20th century invention, and I don't want one. That and the last line in the book Into the Wild about happiness is only real when shared. Those two things, brilliant. It's tragic what happened with him, but I believe Christopher McCandless was sort of suffering from loneliness. He figured out what society had become. And he did not fit in and couldn't figure out how to operate. There are people that are like, I will not just sit here and have small talk. It's not real. I'd rather stay home. I also realized there was an element of my predicament that had been quite specifically male. Loneliness isn't gendered, but men in particular tend to struggle to express deep feelings and form meaningful connections. Many of us find it easier to talk about football or politics than to admit to suffering from a low bedroom fund drive or feeling undervalued at work. We don't know who to tell those things or how to say them. This is why some men flock obsessively to secular evangelists such as Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, and Sam Harris, who fill the fraternal vacuum with rigorous examinations of the male psyche and spread their gospel through podcasts and YouTube. I think that's true. I was watching Tim Pool again, and one of the things that they were saying there is that a lot of people are isolated and consider, the podcasts and YouTube people they see on YouTube and Rumble and stuff like that as their friends. And I know that we've made some connections like that, and I'm so thankful for that. But it's so sad that it's become that there's such a need that we do that. And I do that too. I'm not trying to be the woman and like make it about me, but I do it too, because the multiple sclerosis has severely isolated me. There's just a lot of time. I just don't have the energy. There are reasons. I'm not going to sit here and because I don't feel sorry for myself. But the reality is that a disability like that is quite isolating. And that's why I remembered that segment on Tim Pool, because I was like, that's actually true. And I'm thankful that there is such a thing as YouTube and Rumble to fill that. But also it's sad that there is such a need. The boys club. Boy, that's a misandrist phrase. Men aren't good at talking to each other or asking for help. That's because they're not allowed to anymore. They used to be. Breathe, Aaron, breathe. This may be a cliche, but it's true. Personally, I would rather walk around lost for half an hour than risk looking incompetent by asking for directions. Right? Women need to stop making fun of men for that. They need to stop making fun of men in general. But yeah, we need to knock that off. I used to do that. Think it was like harmless. What do we just think that men don't have feelings? Or their feelings don't matter? Every girlfriend I've had has found this baffling. I need peak district levels of comfort and familiarity to open up to another man. The majority of my friends are female because I generally find the company of women to be more relaxed and engaging. But to help me negotiate my darkest, most brutal emotions, real-life male company is essential. WhatsApp threads just don't cut it, no matter how witty the banter. Recent research confirms this. A 2017 study at the University of Oxford showed that men bond better through face-to-face contact and activities. Right, because you guys do stuff together. You do stuff. Then some talking might happen. But the doing of the stuff seems to be the thing that bonds first. You guys tell me. The more I can understand about you guys, I just think the better this channel will be and the more I'll be able to help. That's the idea. I'm not asking for comments for the algorithm, although I probably should, but I'm asking because I really want to understand you guys. Whereas women find it much easier to hold. Okay, so they do better with face-to-face contact and activities, whereas women find it much easier to hold on to emotional connection through phone conversations. That's true. Our social structures function differently too. According to a study in the journal PLOS One, PLOS One, friendships are more likely to flourish in groups, whereas women favor one-to-one interactions. Do we? I don't know. We got the whole hive mentality. Maybe it's one-to-one at a time. I'm not sure. I think you guys need your best friend. I think you need a Samwise. Frodo needs Sam, and Sam needs Frodo. That was the best part of that movie. That was the best part. Now I look back on it and I'm like, oh, that was a little satanic, and I accepted it because it's J.R.R. Tolkien. That's old, so it must be okay. I'm like, no, those orcs are a little, but I could be wrong about that. I'm just more guarded about what I see. But the friendship between Frodo and Sam is what is so moving about that movie. Like it brought me to tears so many times. He says, Frodo, Sam says to Frodo, doesn't he say, don't go where I can't follow? Something like that. Something of that nature. It's beautiful. Okay. All right. Let's pull it together. I got to be able to see. Can't see through tears. What determined whether friendships survived with girls was whether they made the effort to talk more to each other on the phone, says Robin Dunbar, who led the Oxford study. What held up male friendships was doing stuff together. Going to a football match, going to the pub for a drink, playing five-a-side. They had to make the effort. It was a very striking sex difference. Yeah. I can see. You guys can't see. Hold on. We're good. Okay. We're good. The conundrum I faced last year was how to make new male friends, a task that seems to get more difficult with age. It does. I've only made 2 close male friends since leaving university, now almost 10 years ago, and that is way more than most men can say. So much more. Like he is just, his cup runneth over when it comes to friendships if he's made 2 male friends after university, if he even has a friend. There have been plenty of mates, colleagues, drinking companions, and holiday bromances. Again, misandrist. That was also, remember that? The bromance thing? That was to shame men. And it was just like almost passive aggressive way to shame men who were friends. Right? Especially masculine men. It was like calling it effeminate. But no one I would call up if my life was falling apart. As men enter their 40s, the situation often gets worse. Many become siloed by family life, moving to the suburbs, socializing in couples, maintaining a solid professional network, but unable to access the kind of raw male companionship they need. Exactly what I was saying before. They get approved, football friends. And many men are far more reliant on their partners for emotional support than they'd like to admit. And they need the male, and that's why the wives don't want it. Because it's like, oh, they don't have control. I know it's about control, even if it's subconscious. You really have to work to keep it all going, says one 40-something friend who sees his mates less and less often since they all started families. A Christmas drink or annual reunion is fun, but it isn't enough. Getting people to commit when they are dealing with young kids is a nightmare, though, because they're having to work and be part-time wives at the same time because they don't have wives. If they had wives, maybe they'd have time to have friends. And I don't mean they're not married. I mean they're married, but The person they're married to is not a wife. How do you make male friends in your 30s and 40s? How do you create those bonding experiences? It's surprisingly hard. You may meet people at work or perhaps through a sports team, but all too often you come up against a barrier. When I was first in New York, I'd quite often come across guys I liked. We'd even go for a few beers, but then what? The second man date feels a bit odd. It's just not clear what comes next. Because he hasn't been taught. It hasn't been fostered since he was a child. You guys should know how to make and keep friends, and you should have been taught to prioritize that and not let it be co-opted by a girlfriend or a wife or what have you. Isolated community. Some of the causes of modern loneliness relate to the extent to which we have strayed from our tribal evolutionary roots. Technology is one culprit, of course. You know the theory, by linking us all together, social media has somehow managed to drive us further apart. Yep. In a study of adults aged between 19 and 32, those who reported spending more than 2 hours a day on social media were twice as likely to describe feeling left out or isolated. Our digital ties can feel like the real thing, but they often turn out to be weak and unsatisfying, ghostly imitations of human contact. One of the biggest hurdles to building modern friendships is time, an increasingly rare commodity. Right, because career is stealing it and the fact that you don't have wives is stealing it. Hyper-urbanization and the decay of traditional communities is another. Why do we have a decay of communities? Because we don't have families. Traditional communities are built by families. A family is built, several families, that's the community. You don't have families, you don't have community. What fostered that community? The wives. They stayed connected. Oh, so-and-so's husband is sick. Let's send over a pot roast. Oh, so-and-so, just passed away. Let's do this, right? Let's get together and let's work on homeschooling in our group of families that we all know, where the men are doing, going out and providing and that stuff, and the women are, working to keep it a solid and healthy community. It's like Jenga. We took out the wives. They don't want to be wives anymore. The whole thing came crashing down. So hyper-urbanization, decay of traditional communities. So many of us are now bowling alone, as U.S. political scientist Robert D. Putnam put it in his book about the decline of civic life. Calling it civic life. More and more people are taking up bowling, he pointed out, but fewer and fewer are doing so in organized teams and leagues. That is an interesting and very sad way to observe the state of society. I grew up in a close Jewish community in North London. As a child, I knew the names of at least half the people on my street. My grandparents lived 6 doors down, and my cousins were on the next road. I often found this gossipy village-style life claustrophobic at the time, but I'd trade it in a moment for the anonymity of my last 4 apartment blocks. I haven't had a meaningful conversation with a neighbor in a decade. I wouldn't know where to leave a set of spare keys. That's right. Exactly. He had that community. He had the family. He had that foundation. And society said, no, that's not important. Throw that away. Chase your career. It's a lie. It's a lie. We are now at the state where we are realizing the negativity of industrialization. You can't have feminism without industrialization, without the Industrial Revolution. You can't have this kind of loneliness without the Industrial Revolution. And that leads me back to, hey, the Amish were right all along. Just gonna make a t-shirt that says the Amish were right all along. When in doubt, do as the Amish do. Oh, err on the side of Amish. I'm sure it'll be a bestseller. Oh my goodness. Okay. One of the biggest hurdles to building modern friendships is time, an increasingly rare commodity. Friendships need time like a plant needs water. Oh yeah. A recent study published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships estimated that on average, it takes about 90 hours of time with someone before you consider them a real friend, and 200 to become close. But it's a matter of quality, not just quantity. Friendships require deep time, the nights when you're in the mood for 5 drinks, not one, or the wide open Sundays when you feel like concocting a flamboyant roast dinner. It reminds me of my childhood, Sunday roast dinners. Rather than just catching up over a burger. One bender is worth 100 quick halves after work. Don't go on a bender, okay? I don't want you guys to do things that are bad for your health, so careful with that, though. But I honestly would rather you have friends and do that than not, you know? Here I am telling you what's appropriate in friendship. See, you can't trust it. You can't trust the women. We're always trying to, trying to tell you what to do. It's stupid. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but makes us think we're supposed to do that. Annoying. I annoy myself. Friend requests. Some men are working to find solutions to these issues. I'm ambivalent about Canadian psychologist Jordan Peterson's politics, but the fact that he and many like him have become so popular is a sign that men are yearning for an emotional and profound conversation. I recently came across the Everyman Project, founded by Dan Doughty, a filmmaker and nature guide who observed in his work that men were desperate to find a way to reconnect with each other. The project leads men's trips into the wilderness of the Berkshires, say, or Yellowstone National Park. There they meditate and hike, but their most important task is to sit in a circle and bare their souls. It's like they're going to camp. The simple act of explicitly getting together with the intention of opening up to share all the stuff you don't normally share is incredibly powerful, says Doughty. It doesn't have to be much more complicated than that. Most of Everyman's participants are between 26 and 42. That's older Gen Zs and millennials. The period when men leave behind their adolescent circles and strike out alone into an unforgiving world. Dottie's goal is to get men in social situations to go straight to the emotional kill. Okay? He uses the following equation: vulnerability times time equals depth of connection. By amplifying their vulnerability levels, Doughty believes that he can reduce the amount of time it takes for men to form real friendships. We could go to the bar and talk about baseball, then maybe open up a little bit, he says. Or, in order for this to be beneficial to me, so I can enjoy my life and be healthy, we could just cut the poopy. This is who I am. Okay. I'm gonna stop right there. Cut the poop. Okay, so getting together, having a drink. No, I think that's necessary for you guys. It's weird to just be like, talk about your feelings. I don't think it works that way. And trying to do it in less time. Why don't you figure out why they have such little time? And why don't we deal with that? Why don't we get to the root? I don't understand this. It's like, well, let's do it and still make our wives happy, or let's do it and still have our careers. Like, you have to. Kevin Samuels again, The Godfather. Life is about people. It's about people. And the ones of us who believe the lies about career and I think a lot of us are learning this now. The Gen X is like, wow, where's my family? Where are my friends? And millennials are starting to do the same because we get into our 40s and we're like, where's everybody? And because of the further isolation of everything, you see it younger. It's really a problem. It's a crisis. We need to put close friendships at the center of our life plans to work towards them strategically. That's true. I've attended a couple of Everyman's group sessions in New York, and while I find them fascinating, I'm too weighed down by British cynicism to engage fully. I want my friendships to be organic rather than forged in the new age microwave oven of organized wilderness bonding. Yeah. Well said. In an ideal world, Dottie acknowledges, his organization wouldn't need to fill the friendship and connectivity gap in people's lives. But in this world, for many men, projects such as everymen are increasingly essential. That's worded weird. For me, the lesson of my own experience of loneliness is that we need to put close friendships at the center of our life plans to work towards them strategically, wholeheartedly, and relentlessly. In the same way one might work towards a marriage or a career. Yes. I believe that every one of us needs a cottage someplace up on a misty moor filled with people we trust. Otherwise, we'll end up bowling alone. He's right. And there's a lot of us bowling alone. We're sort of right now bowling alone together as a coping mechanism. If this wasn't a crisis, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel, probably. We wouldn't have gotten this far and had family court be such a travesty, because men would be getting together and talking. State hates that. The state does not want you guys getting together and talking. Yeah, it's my tinfoil hat, I know. But tell me why I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I will learn and I will change my mind. God knows I've done that enough times in my life. Thankfully, I don't want to be the type of person that gets new information and says, never mind. But right now, from what I see, this is a crisis. And it's one thing for younger men to learn to prioritize their friendships and foster it. But what about the ones that are now 40, give or take 10 years, and now they're alone? How do you rectify that? You can't go backwards, right? I don't know. I don't have the answers. I wish I did. I really wish I did. I wish I could just fix it. But one thing I do know is that we don't, in society, we don't talk about the problems that men face. We think we call friendships bromances, and and we feminize churches. So that's it just gets to be like, let's worship the women in church, and that stops all real conversation about their family life. Everybody's just saving face in that situation. Hopefully, well, you guys are smart, and change is slow, but if we talk about it, maybe there will be, even if it begins online, maybe there will begin corners of the internet that talk about it, and maybe that grows. I actually think somebody like Joe Rogan is very helpful. A lot of times, and his whole podcast started with his friends coming on. He said his first real guest was Graham Hancock, the history guy who's like, this isn't the real history. Super interesting. But like before that, he said it was all my friends. And I'm like, that's it's fantastic. And I think people watch that because they see him hanging out with friends. We need to just keep fostering that. Keep celebrating that. Stop trying to, as women, we need to stop trying to define it and say, well, what's right or what's wrong with that? It's whatever you guys want to do. It's what you guys need. You should be able to prioritize that. And maybe now that we're all getting older, the first generation really that prioritized career well over family, Gen X, and millennials did it even more. You get to a certain age and you go, oh, well, this crap doesn't matter. What am I gonna, like, I'm sitting home. What are you gonna do when you're alone and you have, things you want to talk about, but you've got money in the bank? Like, so what? Doesn't matter. I grew up with money with my family. Like, I always knew, like, I would rather have my dad home. I would rather not move. I would rather not show horses. I don't want to pay that price. I was lucky to learn that as a child. Like, but I don't want all this. I'd rather have you home. Like, I understood, like, oh, your career means we have to give this up. Your career means we have to move. Don't sacrifice the things that are important for the things that are not. We are all lied to. So, you guys are seen. I see you. And for whatever that's worth, I wish I could do more. Thank you for joining me on this one. It was difficult, but it was needed. And let me know what other things you'd like me to cover, and I'll do my best to cover it. This channel is for you. This channel is not for me, and I wanna be a good steward of it. So, thank you guys again, and I want you to take care of yourselves. I encourage you to talk to one another. Comment in the comments. If anybody is nasty to you guys, that's when they get kicked out. That's when it's hide from channel. Love you guys. And I will definitely see you on the next one. Bye.